Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story: did the Chinese Communist Party meddle in the 2020 U.S. election? The FBI just unveiled what it calls alarming allegations of Beijing's involvement. But just how deep does the interference go? To dig deeper into China's influence on the U.S. political system, we spoke with an expert.
They've defined the United States as their primary enemy since the fall of the Soviet Union.
A top aide to Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass is drawing scrutiny amid ongoing unrest in the city. He's the son of a man with official ties to Beijing-backed groups. We take a closer look. The Chinese-owned social media app TikTok is getting another 90-day reprieve. President Trump is said to push back the deadline for the third time. And a Chinese medical student's mysterious death is raising questions online. His father believes his son is a whistleblower, and it may be tied to a major scandal inside China's transplant industry. A stunning statement from the FBI's top official, Director Kash Patel, says China may have tried to tip the scales in the 2020 U.S. presidential election. According to Patel, the agency has uncovered what he describes as alarming allegations involving the Chinese Communist Party. The allegations accuse the CCP of mass-producing fake U.S. driver's licenses to obtain mail-in ballots for then Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden. The allegations come from a newly declassified report turned over to Congress on Monday. Patel says the allegations were backed by evidence, but were abruptly recalled in 2020 and kept from the public until now. Patel also gave the documents to Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley, who had been pushing for a closer look at the intelligence. This development comes after then FBI Director Christopher Wray testified that there were no known foreign efforts to interfere in the 2020 election. But despite that testimony, just 6 months into 2020, customs officers at Chicago's O'Hare Airport reportedly seized nearly 20,000 counterfeit U.S. driver's licenses. Then in May this year, U.S. Customs again seized over 4,000 fake driver's licenses from China at the same airport. Those fake IDs were part of a larger shipment that also included $9 million worth of counterfeit goods from China. In 2022, the FBI reported that 80% of economic espionage cases benefited China. The agency also warned that Chinese hackers used disinformation campaigns to sow chaos during the 2016 and 2018 U.S. elections. Now, the FBI says it will keep investigating to find out if these new allegations are true and to assess just how much influence the CCP really has in U.S. elections. To get insight on the FBI chief's statement of alarming allegations about the Chinese Communist Party's interference in the U.S. election, we spoke with Michael Lucci, founder and CEO of State Armor. Michael Lucci, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you back on the show.
Tiffany, it's always great to be on.
You have Senator Chuck Grassley really digging into it. Just from the initial news, though, what was your reaction to this? Were you surprised that there was Chinese interference?
I wasn't surprised. I mean, the scale of it, and if it's true, is very shocking. But it's not a total surprise that China is interfering in our political system, even through vote casting. They interfere in our political system in a lot of different ways, from the local level to the state level to the federal level. What the Chinese Communist Party understands is that we are fundamentally in a systems competition, and they seek to use the openness of our system to break it. And so if these allegations are true about them trying to do a lot of vote casting, remote vote casting, using fake IDs, et cetera, in the swing states, I mean, that's one more instance of them trying to leverage our openness as a political system to try to break the United States in our political system.
This reporting, of course, comes a month after Customs and Border Protection seized over 20,000 fake IDs at the Chicago O'Hare Airport. When it comes to those fake IDs, though, is the use only for election interference? Could it be used for something like fentanyl, or how should we understand this?
Well, they have all sorts of vectors through which they try to hit us with fentanyl. I mean, they run it through the terrorist organizations that we know as Mexican drug cartels. They run it through Canada when they can. They send it in through de minimis shipping packages. So they'll flood us with fentanyl any which way they can. Now, the allegation, as I understand it, is that they were printing up the IDs of real American people, but then they wanted to run the votes through Chinese nationals and maybe CCP sympathizers in the United States. So they would request that remote ballot and be able to vote illegally on behalf of an American citizen. So that's incredibly egregious, especially at the scale that they allegedly intended to do it, in the tens or hundreds of thousands. As you mentioned, 20,000 of these fake IDs seized at O'Hare. But this just shows their ability to ship in fake IDs is synonymous with their ability to ship in fentanyl to poison and kill as many Americans as they can, and to ship in even ostensibly legitimate technologies that they sell to us that we later find out have back doors that are going into our critical infrastructure, our healthcare systems, wherever they are. So they're shipping in just terrible things into the United States in general, and we need to be separating our systems because, as I mentioned, they intend to use the openness of our system to break our system so that the Chinese Communist Party system, really a technological totalitarianism, will become the dominant system in the world.
On that note, right now, University of Michigan has been making the headlines with the Chinese students there, the ones trying to smuggle in the fungus, and then also another one that was a researcher from Wuhan that was also had some ties to that university. That was the same university where a Chinese student enrolled there voted illegally in the 2024 election. What do you make of these recent cases? Are we just hitting the tip of the iceberg, or is this, are we actually catching on to more of them?
I think it's both. I think that we're catching on to more of what they're doing, but then they are accelerating their political warfare within the United States. So if you go back 10 years, they weren't dumping fentanyl and other things like that as egregiously. They weren't, as far as we know, trying to break our voting systems in the same way. They weren't, that we knew of, shipping in these diseases. They're definitely accelerating their warfare, their gray zone warfare against the United States, as they feel stronger. So when China was weaker, they adopted the strategy of, to kind of keep their head down and build their strength and bide their time. And that's actually how they described it. Now, as they become stronger, they're more assertive, and it's more clear what the Communist Party wants to do, which is really to attack and hurt the United States. Now, they've been at war with the United States. They've defined the United States as their primary enemy since the fall of the Soviet Union. 35 years later, here we are, and they're really involved in open instances of gray zone warfare.
Michael Lucci, as always, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass is in the spotlight for her recent clash with President Trump over how to handle unrest in the city. Now, another issue is coming to light. New reports suggest potential ties between her close aides and China's spy agency. Here's the latest. Facing scrutiny is Adam Ma, Mayor Bass's Asian American liaison and commission appointments director. His father, Derek Ma, also known as Ma Shurong, holds top roles in U.S.-based nonprofits controlled by Beijing. These groups are linked to China's United Front Work Department, Beijing's propaganda and intelligence arm, working to influence Chinese communities in the U.S. Chinese state media also show Derek Ma has close ties to key regime leaders. 5 years ago, he was caught attending an event featuring the regime's leader, Xi Jinping. At the Chinese Communist Party's 100th anniversary in 2021, Derek Ma publicly declared his loyalty, stating, quote, "If China didn't have the CCP, there'd be no strong China today." Meanwhile, he was busy fundraising for then Congresswoman Karen Bass's mayoral campaign. Reports say Derek raised tens of thousands of dollars through his influence in local Chinese communities. Shortly after taking office, Mayor Bass hired Derek's son, Adam Ma, for key positions on her team. This news comes as lawmakers investigate potential Chinese influence behind the LA protests, including ties to pro-CCP billionaire Neville Singham. The Chinese-owned social media app TikTok is getting another 90-day reprieve. President Trump is set to sign an executive order delaying the deadline on the law that could ban the popular short video platform in the U.S. Here's more.
The law went into effect in January, and it requires TikTok to be banned in the U.S. unless it's sold by its China-based parent company, ByteDance. Neither has happened yet since Trump continues to delay the law's enforcement. The White House says Trump does not want TikTok to go dark. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says the administration will work over the next 3 months to make sure the sale goes through. She says the goal is to let Americans keep using TikTok with confidence that their data is safe and secure. The app has 170 million users in the U.S.
U.S. concerns over TikTok also stem from the Chinese regime's control of the company and its ability to influence public opinion. A grieving father is challenging the narrative from China's state-run media over his son's mysterious death. The case involves Luo Shuaiyu, a Chinese medical student who died last May after falling from his apartment building. Authorities closed the investigation just last week, calling his death a suicide. But Luo's parents tell a different story. They say their son was a whistleblower exposing forced organ harvesting. NTD's Flora Hua has more on the story.
Luo's parents say files discovered on their son's computer point to evidence of forced organ harvesting and illegal transplant activities in China. NTD's undercover reporter contacted Luo's father and obtained this audio recording from Luo's phone. Just a heads up, some viewers may find the following content disturbing.
3到9岁孩子，他又分3到5岁啊，6到9岁，然后男女各3例。每个组就是6例吧，因为这个标本其实不是那么一下子收集完的，估计会延长很长一段时间，所以说你顺便熟悉一下获取，怎么获取了，期望获取了。
Luo's father says Luo received this phone call from his medical school soon after being accepted. The family believes Luo may have been murdered because he tried to blow the whistle and refused to source organs from children.
On August 28, 2024, we submitted evidence to the Changsha Police Bureau exposing the illegal organ harvesting and trafficking involving the second Xiangya Hospital of Central South University. But to this day, we have received no response.
The files include documents over 1,000 pages long. What's more, after initially submitting their evidence to China's health authorities, Luo's father says someone reached out with a shocking settlement offer, more than $2 million. He refused. Now, 1 year after Luo's death, Beijing's state-owned broadcaster aired a report last week dismissing all suspicions related to murder or organ trafficking. Luo's parents strongly reject the report, a stance that resonates with many Chinese internet users. The family is now demanding a full investigation into China's transplant industry. In 2007, an NGO investigating the persecution of Falun Gong in China blacklisted the same hospital and its doctors for allegedly harvesting organs from live practitioners. The NGO's leader accused the Chinese Communist Party of orchestrating this brutal crime, saying the hospitals involved were, quote, openly engaging in the murder of innocent people for profit. Falun Gong is a spiritual practice that has been brutally persecuted in China by the CCP since 1999. In light of mounting evidence, several U.S. states, including Texas and Idaho, have passed legislation restricting residents from obtaining organ transplants sourced from China. Flora Hua, NTD News.
Coming up, a national emergency. That's how American battery makers describe China's export restrictions on a key metal. This critical mineral is crucial for both batteries and military equipment. Senators are taking action after nearly 24 Chinese swimmers failed doping tests, yet were still cleared by the World Anti-Doping Agency. Now, lawmakers are calling for major reforms at the agency. And India is racing to build a high-tech economy to compete with China. A new smartphone factory near New Delhi shows that shift in action. That and more in just a minute here on China in Focus. Welcome back to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. A national emergency for the U.S. That's how American battery makers describe China's restrictions on antimony exports. Since last year, the Chinese regime has limited exports of this crucial mineral, vital for making batteries and military equipment. Let's zoom in.
The Chinese regime put export restriction in place in the critical mineral antimony last year. Lead-acid batteries need antimony. They are used in gas-powered cars as sources of backup power in various industries. They are even used to store excess energy generated by solar and wind systems. Antimony is also essential to some military equipment. Beijing added the mineral to its export control list last September, requiring companies to get licenses for each overseas antimony deal. It then followed up in December with an outright ban on shipments to the U.S. The Responsible Battery Coalition had said policymakers should treat the issue as one of national security. He says Western countries have become too reliant on a single geopolitical adversary for minerals essential for both national defense and everyday life.
Senators are calling for reforms at the World Anti-Doping Agency after nearly 24 Chinese swimmers were cleared by the agency despite failing doping tests. NTD correspondent Jason Blair reports.
As we approach the 2026 World Cup and the 2028 Olympics, both hosted by the United States, we must ensure that the competition will be fair and free from doping.
Senate lawmakers are calling the recent track record for the World Anti-Doping Agency less than satisfactory.
In the months leading up to the Tokyo 2021 Summer Olympic Games, the China Anti-Doping Agency, CHINADA, found that 23 Chinese swimming athletes tested positive for a banned substance. What actions did World Anti-Doping Agency take following the test? They refused to investigate how China's swimmers consumed the banned substance.
They accepted a deeply questionable explanation and allowed these athletes to go ahead and compete. Many of them went on to win medals. This wasn't just a lapse in judgment, it was a cover-up.
Since the fallout, the world has, I think it's fair to say, lost faith in WADA.
Chinese authorities said that the 23 swimmers who tested positive for the banned substance consumed it accidentally by eating meat. This is the third time in recent years that Chinese athletes have cited contaminated food as the reason for failing doping tests. After being cleared by the Anti-Doping Agency to compete in the Tokyo Olympics, the 30-member Chinese swim team went on to win 6 medals, including 3 gold.
In response to the doping scandal, the United States took decisive action, withheld its $3.6 million contribution to WADA. First time the nation's ever taken this action. Withholding funds.
Unfortunately, almost a year after the explosive New York Times report exposing the scandal, WADA has failed to provide answers. Instead, all that they have provided are threats, stonewalling, and intimidation.
Former Olympic swimmer and silver medalist Katie McLaughlin was a witness at the hearing. She also competed in the 2020 Olympic Games.
To me, competing clean wasn't just a rule. It was a responsibility. I was representing my country, my teammates, my family. And when I stood on the blocks, I wanted to know that I earned that place honestly. But what about the next young athlete who steps up on the blocks and doesn't have a shot at fairness? Young athletes get one chance to achieve their dream, and they can't on an uneven playing field.
And whistleblowers are alleging widespread doping amongst Chinese athletes. In 2017, a former doctor for China's national team, after seeking asylum outside of China, released her recorded documentation of systemic doping amongst Chinese sports, dating back to at least 1978. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
India is aiming to build a high-tech economy as it seeks to compete with China. A smartphone factory near New Delhi shows that transformation taking shape. Here's more.
For India's fast-growing smartphone industry, every part matters.
So this is the battery of the phone. Now, earlier we used to import this, right? Now this is totally localized.
The battery is part of an ambitious plan by Lava International, one of India's biggest domestic smartphone brands, to build the first 100% Indian phone within 5 years. Right now, they still source about 60% of their smartphone parts from overseas.
We import this part from China.
And until 10 years ago, actually manufactured in China.
India must come up and take a large share of the global market.
Yeah.
And for that, some companies have to take the lead.
Now the momentum is building.
This factory actually opened in 2015, just a year after Prime Minister Narendra Modi unveiled ambitious plans to supercharge domestic manufacturing.
You only have to drive around this city, Noida, just 30 kilometers south of Delhi, to see the landscape shifting. There's this huge Samsung facility, which is actually one of the biggest mobile phone manufacturing plants in the whole of India. There's also Dixon Technologies, an Indian company that assembles Google Pixel phones, as well as other big Indian names. And now, as US-China trade tensions simmer and Apple promises to shift its entire US-bound production line to India, iPhone manufacturer Foxconn is also in talks to build a new semiconductor plant just south of here. While some of India's edge may hinge on securing tariff reduction from the US, the official view is that government incentives, as well as India's vast pool of talent and labour, are a much bigger draw.
Do you see this as a sort of inflection point for this industry in India? Do you think this is a pivotal moment?
Yes, of course. For the last 6-7 years, you see progress happening very slowly. You come to a point when things start to change faster, right? So this is what is happening now.
It's an opportunity, but also, as for these phones in Lava's laboratory, a test of India's true manufacturing strength on a global scale.
That's all for today's China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. If you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at chinainfocus@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. For On the Clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.